Okay. Welcome to our January 19th, 2021 first EDIC meeting of calendar year 2021. I'm glad that you've joined us. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of EDIC is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public can or will be permitted. We will ensure that this recording is accessible to the public subsequent to this meeting ending. Thank you so much for your time and effort. Wear a mask, it's the rules. Okay, I'm glad to see you all. I did not include our minutes from December in the email with the agenda, but I did send them to you in late December. So, having said that, has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes from December?
Yes.
Great. Could I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December?
Move to approve the meetings from December.
Wonderful.
Second.
Any second? Okay. Casey seconds. Outstanding. Any further discussion? Okay. Let's, all in favor of approving the December 15th, 2020 minutes, holler aye.
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 Any nays? Any
One
abstentions?
One abstention.
Okay. Is that you?
Oh, actually, I'm the abstention as well.
And myself.
Shame on me.
You're abstaining, and why is that?
I wasn't here.
As wasn't I.
Aye.
As wasn't I. I wasn't either.
Nor was I.
Well, you can approve the minutes.
Well,
No, you
we
can't
shouldn't.
because you weren't there. I get
Right.
it. Never mind. Okay. Thank you. What's next? Nobody here from the public that I know of. Nobody's asking to get in. So I wonder if it would be okay to potentially, Josh, yes.
Just a point of order. I'm sorry. I know we are without Dave Boyle anymore.
Yes.
Casey, it's wonderful seeing you. Are you a guest or have you joined?
I have not unjoined.
Oh, the other Casey. I'm
Different
sorry.
Casey.
Casey Corsello. Hi, Casey Douglas.
I'm the Casey with the K, so all the Caseys are represented here.
Casey Corsello is our guest speaker today, Josh.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Would you consider
so-
joining?
I would consider joining.
Okay.
So on this particular point, I wonder if it would be okay with Jeff Bagg to switch places with Casey in the agenda.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Marvelous. Does anybody have a problem with that? Super duper. Casey Corsello, we've shared around previous to our December meeting, we shared a link to the document that you shared at the city council meeting in early December. And I shared this afternoon the supplemental recent article that you sent out to me. So I wonder if there is anything in particular that you would like to lead with in presenting more to the rest of the group, and then we may have a bunch of questions for you and conversation will ensue.
Excellent. So what I wanted to do actually was just give a little bit of background. So has everyone seen the website or the link? Yes. Okay. And I know that Mo is very much a part of this and Jeff knows about it as well as resource partners. So essentially, a little bit of background is that the mayor had partnered with the Kauffman Foundation and National League of Cities to really start to look into our entrepreneur and innovation ecosystem, and specifically in resource partners. And what a resource partner is someone that supports entrepreneurs innovators from different parts, different cycles of their business. And those could be nonprofits, they can be government agencies, universities, and financial institutions or lenders. And so the mayor chose to partner with SourceLink. So SourceLink is the company that did the research and looked at essentially the region. So because Easthampton is small, and we have the Easthampton Chamber of Commerce, which is basically the main supporter of businesses here. And there are other resource partners such as MSBDC, there's also Valley CDC, there's SCORE, Valley Venture Mentors, just to name a few that do different things. Like SCORE, for example, I mean, most of you, if you don't know me, I own a business here in Easthampton. And I didn't have any business background. Many entrepreneurs don't essentially have business background. They have a big vision and a dream, and then they need support from folks. And so we needed to write a business plan, so we used SCORE. So SCORE was a resource partner that, we're partnered with a mentor and they help us along the way. And, Mo was also one of those resource partners in supporting and networking and finding us a place to rent and kind of have the brick and mortar to start the business, as well as connecting us with Casey to help with some mentorship as well. So it's like, the way that we look at what Blueprint Easthampton is it's a resource for entrepreneurs, but it's also a resource for resource partners. So we have about 32 partners on the list. And what you can do is search. What I wanted to actually pull up to give a visual here. Can I share my screen? Because I think it would be,
so.
Okay.
You have the button for you.
Let me see. This was a disaster at the city council meeting, so
I think it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, really?
I think if you make Casey a co-host.
Yep. Sure do. All right, I've made you a co-host. You should be able to screen share now.
Okay. Because I'm going to go here. And I'm going to pull up, I'm just going to pull this up right here. So the initial idea was to have this navigator, this printable navigator for our resource partners to share with their clients or anyone really in business that they support. And you can see that it's divided in 3 different categories. So you have concept, startup, growth, expansion, and then rollout and all. And so up on top here, you can just see there's just various ways in which they support businesses. And so the way that I think the way that entrepreneurs get connected with partners is through networking, it's through word of mouth. It's not as simple. It's like, hey, did you talk to this person or did you talk to that person? But if you're not connected with those people that know who you need to talk to, then you don't have access to the information that's out there. And even though there are a lot of resources for entrepreneurs, but what's missing is that link to that information. And even if folks are sharing on Facebook, you really sometimes it's hard to get that information. And so this becomes a tool that people can share out. And as well as the website. So you can go on the website and you can kind of put in where you are in your business and what kind of support you need. So the idea behind Blueprint Easthampton is to be a resource, and it is to really pull together the information of our resource partners. It's to be able to streamline how you get it to them so that it makes it easier. Because I think, if you are a business owner, you don't really have time to go in and do the research on who do I need to talk to. You're just pretty much in your business, in operation, especially in startup. It's hard to find time to really do that. And just in my own experience, the partnership, let's say even with Mo, like Mo is not only providing a service and networking, but she's also like there to cheer on our business and to say, listen, I believe in you and it's going to work out. And here's ways that you can do this. So it's like you have a team, really. And when we're starting out, often these are, nonprofits, it's pro bono. They're grant funded organizations. Because honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't have the business acumen. They have a wonderful vision and they have an amazing product that they really want to get out there. And this is an integral part in helping them even just take that first step and then continuing on. So what Blueprint Easthampton is we had a meeting on Friday, which we brought in our resource partners, and they were able to share what's happening, specifically with PPP. So they're also being a resource to each other so that they can know how to refer to each other as well, because some of our resource partners do just certain things where other ones can do more. Or, for example, the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce has grants available for folks in that affinity group that maybe the Easthampton Chamber of Commerce wouldn't have access to, let's say. So they shared a lot of information amongst each other. And I think it was a good flow, and they were able to ask questions about PPP. And then I think that they even directly referred folks to each other. So it streamlines the information. It gets it out to entrepreneurs. And I think what it does for Easthampton is that it says to business owners, here's what we're committed to. We're committed to helping you pivot your business. We're helping you to, stay in business. We're committed to having new businesses come in as well. And this will evolve. The mayor has committed to another. It's another commitment through NLC, which is taking informal businesses and formalizing them into registered businesses in the city. So it's a developing, it's almost like its own business, I will say. So it's almost like, there's a vision, and then it's just sort of, we're going through the process as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What you just said about taking informal businesses and formalizing them into registered businesses in the city, what can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so let's just say you're the person that's making, I don't know, they make cookies in their home and they sell them, to friends or family, or they're not a registered business, let's say. Or you have someone that's making soap and they haven't formalized their business. And what happens is that they cannot have access to what's available to them. they don't access if there's any grants for them, if there's any, PPP, they wouldn't have access to that, or any of the loans that are available for businesses, registered businesses. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I get it. So like the hobbyist, essentially industry, making that more formalized for them.
Yeah, or even consultants, people who are maybe doing bookkeeping on the side or things like that as well. But a lot of the makers, yes, a lot of makers. And Casey, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, like, artists would be a primary example where they have some sources of revenue through independent selling, but they're not very organized and they're not very, it's some sort of ability to treat their art as a business per se would be a very helpful thing, I think, to some.
Yes. And so with that commitment, there is, it's not just registering them. There will be a business boot camp type of a thing. So we will provide coaching, and they will have programming through our resource partners, and which will be like a business 101. They'll have some classes. And that is like, we're forming that right now, but it is to formalize them. A lot of people have lost their jobs right now, and it's like you have this thing, or you've been kind of getting your feet wet a little bit with what you're, maybe it's a hobby, or it's like you have this idea, and because of the pandemic, people have lost their jobs. And so now they're thinking, okay, now's the time to do that. Now's the time to kind of try it and see if it'll happen. And what we also know is that entrepreneurship is a way to build wealth. So.
Casey, is there any part of this that guides potential startups through the permitting process, the local municipal process?
Yes, that will be part of it as well.
Okay.
And so the mayor has applied for 2 different grants, and really what it will be as well. We haven't formalized it, and we also have not gotten the grants either. But we want to support people through the whole process, which includes,
Because years ago we had talked about trying to put together a roadmap. I don't know that we ever accomplished it, but a startup business walks in a city hall and someone says, well, you need a building permit. And then they get a building permit and they say, oh, wait a minute, you need a special permit. And oh, wait a minute, you need to talk to the Conservation Commission because where you're going to build or do whatever is close to wet. So there was sort of like a desire to have a guide for, here's what I need to go through if I'm going to open this type of business, if I'm going to have a new construction, or if I'm going to have a rental. Here's sort of the comprehensive process I need to go through in order to get open this type of business or that type of business.
So we did do that actually a couple years ago. There's the Easthampton Small Business Permitting Guide that actually Jamie helped put together. She spearheaded that. So we still have some of those, don't we, Jeff?
Yeah, that's still available as a resource. And I think we've committed in town hall to try to be better about not having all these silos of, I look at this and then I send you on your way to someone else. So we're trying to walk people through more comprehensive too.
And that's a really great idea as well because with Blueprint Easthampton, we have the website, and I can put links to all that information as well, just so it's there on the website. So
my follow-up to that, if I might, is both for Blueprint Easthampton and for what Mo and Jeff were just talking about, where does the person who lives in Franklin County and thinking about opening a business in Easthampton, where do they find that information? How do they know that Blueprint Easthampton exists, or that this resource guide for permitting exists? Do we have it out there somewhere where they might find it?
We we've had it on the link to the city's site where it lives online, and you can download it. So that's one place.
So I know that we're not in the wish list. That's the last item on the agenda, but one of the things that I was going to talk about is what we're talking about now, is having a monthly or quarterly meetup, maybe at City Hall with like the police chief, the fire chief. Barbara could come for the clerk for the permitting process, and maybe the planning department can go. Because I know that there are some other municipalities that do this, and they have a round table. So people who are thinking about starting a business, BE can be there, come in and say, I want to do this, and then everyone's in the room. And they could all say, well, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this. Because a lot of the things about starting a business are things that they're unknown unknowns. People don't even know what they don't know. Like maybe having a sprinkler system as a requirement for their business is just not something they ever thought about until suddenly they're like, oh, well, that just cost me 3 months. Right. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that was one of the things. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Tom.
No. We did do something like that years ago for existing businesses. We brought together the top floor of 50 Pace, and we brought together all the department heads, and basically had a chance for existing businesses to air it out and say, so what's going right? What could we do better? And EDIC, I believe, put that together with probably with the chamber. And again, we had the fire chief, the police chief, the planning department, and mayor. We had everybody in the room, and everybody could start. And just one memory that came out of that is the owner of the October Company, I believe, said at the time, it'd be great if I knew in advance when the mountain was closed so that I could tell my employees who are traveling from out of the area to go around in advance. And that created some sort of system where dispatch or the police department was going to notify these business owners, at 5 o'clock in the morning that the mountain was closed, and they could fire out a notice to all their employees. So little things like that we don't even think about come out of a meeting like you're talking about. We couldn't pull it off annually, Chris. That came out, I think it happened once a year.
Yeah, I mean, see, I'm looking for something more often, like once a month or once a quarter. And I think what you're talking about would be good to have existing businesses come to this as well, because I could see a situation where like maybe twice a year somebody comes to this meeting, and that's why it's a difficult thing to pull off, So that would definitely bolster population.
Mo.
So, thank you. So Mayor Cadger began this very thing that you're talking about, the department head roundtable for new businesses and small businesses. I'm not sure whether or not that's continuing now due to COVID. I thought that Mayor LaChapelle did continue that on. Jeff, you could probably add to that. But yeah, that is something that we were doing.
If it's something that's happening, then egg on my face, and that's great. And I think we should work on pushing it, or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in like two different parts of business development. So, I mean, I think it all does contribute to supporting small businesses. My understanding is that the initiative through the mayor's office is more entrepreneurial based and making sure that they can get access to financial resources. And there's various stages. I don't have a business, but my understanding, like, there's various stages of forming a business, and I would put permitting at local level, like, not at the beginning. These businesses need other support earlier. You probably need some support during permitting, and then you need other kinds of support after too. So it's, I think the blueprint Easthampton is more of the continuum, and we've had the discussion at one point. I'm sure there's people who we've missed, but I've taken it very seriously to support small businesses and getting through the permitting process. And so we've had, I would say, probably 15 roundtable meetings since I've been as the planner. But what I found is you get fatigue from other department heads. Just having a standing meeting sounds logical, but there's a little bit more effort on like my part or Jamie, or now we have Curtis to wrangle everyone together when there's a reason to get together. We've pulled that off and really have mapped out the process for people. But I'm sure there's other people who, if they don't get to the planning department, then yes, they may experience that kind of bouncing around the room kind of for a while before they hit the right people who will kind of walk them through. So I think the process could always be improved, Chris. So I think if that's a later discussion, I think we really got to get a point of entry.
Yeah.
Where there's like, you want to start a business, start here, and then all the other chips will fall behind that. So I think there's always room for improvement.
Get back
I'd like to give Casey Corsello a chance to respond if you have any thoughts to share at this point, Casey. And next it would be Casey Douglas and then Josh. All right, looks like Casey Douglas.
Okay, it sounds like it's similar to a program that Mo had turned me on, E for All down in Holyoke, which is a group of people that apply to be part of the program, and then they get mentorship. I was one of 3 mentors for this woman, and that's a really thorough from the ground up. And this sounds like it's going to have a little bit of that, but it's also going to be more resource guide for existing businesses, businesses that want to grow, businesses that are just sort of not aware of the resources that are around. So it's, as much as Chris, you might want to get like people together on a regular basis, it doesn't always seem, it's not necessary for most businesses, so it's only a time and a place that you need to get approval from the fire department for one particular day for them to look at the paperwork. It's just someone to mentor you to get the stuff together so they can look at it cleanly, approve it or reject it for particular reasons. So it sounds like it's just a next stage and a little bit more broader than what this entrepreneurship that was down in Holyoke, which is now a national organization. So it seems like a great thing if we can get the granting.
Yeah, and it's I'm mentoring for that right now too, Casey. And E for All is a resource partner as well. So it's similar to that, but it would be specifically for businesses that are registering in Easthampton. So not necessarily residents who live here, but people who want to do business here in Easthampton. But it's similar to that. And I think that part of it is as well is that the resource of like coaching as well, professional development coaching, because many entrepreneurs, often they're solopreneurs, right? They're one person, maybe there's partnership, but they, in my own experience, and it's an extension of us, like it's an arm of us, our business, right? So a lot of things come up anytime you do something new. Oftentimes if entrepreneurs haven't done this before, there's hurdles, right? There's things that they do, there's challenges that come up, but there's also the own, let's say our own kind of limiting challenges, right? And we don't necessarily see the bigger picture. And so it's helpful to have other people. This is where resource partners come into play that say, you know what, like it can be done. I believe in you through each of those challenging things, because in the beginning, it's like you said, Chris, we don't know what we don't know. Right. And so then we get to the place where we know what we don't know, and that's uncomfortable. But what's true is that there's a vision, and that's important to get it out there. So it is that kind of holistic support for the entrepreneur. So it's kind of the how-to, but it's also the support in how they can do what they need to do in order to continue to move along that process. And it's an initial process. As we know, it takes time to get from point A to point, let's say, M. And then when they are complete with the program will be 4 months. then they have this network of awesome partners, and Mo will be a support in programming at the end, so that they're like, okay, so if they're ready to find a brick and mortar, right, or they're trying to partner with other area businesses in the city, they're going to be armed with that information moving forward.
Josh, do you have things you'd like to share now? No.
I was just going to try and coming back to Blueprint Easthampton, so that was it. Oh, wait, quick, Casey, did you say there are about 32 currently enrolled now? Okay, thanks.
There are 32 resource partners, so we haven't done, but we're looking to have a cohort of about 10 entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So just to
Question,
clarify,
I think is, who is speaking? Paul?
yeah, you can go ahead. Quinn.
Thank you. The 5 and 10 year outlook for Blueprint Easthampton is that does it continue in this vein until those milestones, for example, or do we imagine that there's a lot of initial outlay for some of the preliminary creation of some of these relationships and resources, and then it looks different? What's the long-term outlook for Blueprint Easthampton?
I think there are different stages, and if we think of it in terms of a business as well, there's a lot of foundational building, and there is outreach. So outreach to the partners, it's finding out what it is that they need, and I think it's kind of an organic process. The idea is that it makes it easier for people to, I think it just creates it's a tool. It's a tool for the ecosystem for entrepreneurs that they can use. It's a technological tool that doesn't depend on, if you know this person, then you can have this. So it helps with equity in terms of just having information out there for folks. And I think it's flexible. I think it's flexible. I mean, the idea is that it's a solid support for entrepreneurs, and that it helps give access to folks who maybe not have access before, or they want. I think it allows. What did the mayor say? It's what she said. I can't think of the quote. It was something about it's something about opportunity. Like it's essentially everyone has something meaningful, and especially if you have a dream or you have a vision, but what stops us is the opportunity.
Sure. So I think my main thrust is, in 5 or 10 years, do we continue to have someone in a role like yours, or someone's? Is that what we imagine? Is that that's always going to be there, or we think that itself could change as well?
I think in other cities that are doing what we're doing, they have a director and they have a team of people. So right now it's me, and the idea for it to be sustainable is that it would, perhaps I think go ahead, Jeff.
No, I didn't mean to jump in too fast, but I think that if you do a 5 or a 10-year look ahead and you're optimistic, then I think I was going right where Casey was going, is that there would be at least a person in town hall kind of devoted to economic development, because right now it's very spread out. So Casey stepped up and is like, we're using our volunteer power. Then I think, it's part of me. It's a part of what the planner's doing right now, is part economic development, part 1,000 other things. And I also want to put a plug in for what the mayor's doing, because I think a lot of her time gets also devoted to economic development. She said something in passing in one of our meetings. So she and I meet with people frequently. And she said, right now you're looking at our economic development team. And it was me and the mayor. And I think now we have Casey, and I think we need a person in town hall devoted to economic development in the future. And it's hard to hear that now during COVID when we have, serious financial issues and there's a hiring freeze. But when we get out of this, someone to be applying for grant funds and to be doing activities in support of businesses and really just managing a whole slew of things that are getting spread out amongst a variety of people now. I think it is something we want to look forward to. And I will put one last just quick note in there that it's in our 2008 master plan, under economic development, to hire someone to have kind of devoted to supporting businesses. And so I think Blueprint Easthampton is kind of the way to really restart that engine and to build us back up to something where we can really support our businesses much better than we do now.
Jeff, I couldn't agree with you more. When I was at the bank, we saw that firsthand. We opened a branch in Holyoke, and as you know, Holyoke had a dedicated economic development director, Marcos. He's gone now, but I think Aaron Vega is stepping into that role. And we worked with Marcos, and he just walked us through the whole process. He did a great job over there in Holyoke. And you're absolutely right. If we can get a person like that eventually, maybe it's Casey, if we can get a person like that eventually in Easthampton, they really just help the business from beginning to end. And someone as sophisticated, if you will, as the bank, who had all the resources, still needed, because we don't know the intricacies of various cities and towns. So opening a branch in Holyoke, we hit some brick walls here and there, no pun intended. And and thank God they had this economic development person to walk us through it.
Paul, do you have anything you'd like to add or ask? Okay.
It's been covered.
Okay. So any final questions, comments, hurrahs, cheers, related to Blueprint Easthampton? Tom Brown, I see you.
I would just add,
This is cool.
I would just add real quick that Casey, in all the years I was in the bank, you mentioned dreams, and we saw a lot of people with dreams, but unfortunately they didn't have reality with it. And the planning part of this is what gives them the reality. So many people came in with a dream to open a business, but never sat down and laid out a business plan. And obviously, as you might imagine, a commercial lender, a banker needs to see a plan. They need to see that the person has their arms around what their expenses are going to be, what their income is going to be, deliverables, marketing, all those things. So I think this is huge and a great resource for anybody looking to start up a business. The planning part of it, to me, is the foundation that they need to open the business.
And I would say, as somebody who went through this process 20 years ago, it was exhausting. And the bank made me go through Western Mass entrepreneurship, who didn't know anything about restaurants. And it was a waste of my time, but the bank needed to see me jump through these hoops just to get that stuff. So, yeah, this seems like it's a great thing for the times.
Yep, I agree. Congratulations. Great job.
Thank you.
Sure.
I would also jump in and thank you, Casey. This is great. Everything, I would echo everything that Tom said. And, I started a business in 2006 as well, and there was nothing for me. I just had to make mistake after mistake after mistake. And so thank you for this. And I guess my ask is, what can EDIC do to help, if you have anything in mind?
Well, I'm wondering if I'm wondering if it would be important to have EDIC as a resource partner. And actually I could probably talk to Gwen or Jeff about that. Because I think
I almost see it as part of public speak that, if somebody feels like they want to tap into the market of experience that we have here, maybe they're just part of the public speak.
Yeah, or as you said, with meetings, the intention is to expand. Again, there's one of me and there's some, so it is to expand, and perhaps maybe we have some meetings in the future with some of you and invite our business community to it as well, just to kind of create connection, and so people know who you are and what it is that you do and what support is available to them, or if we talk about the permitting process, all of those things. I think the biggest hurdle is information. Again, as Chris, you went through all these things, and it's easier when you can have someone that can kind of fill in the blanks instead of making assumptions or guessing. And then who do I need to talk to? I need to talk to all these different people. And, if you're busy and you're trying to be working on your business, then that's just an extra step that maybe one might take, which then doesn't help with being successful or sustaining the business itself. So, and Tom, to your point, the participants will be working on a business plan as well.
Nice.
With EDIC from Valley CDC.
Great.
And so it's not going to be perfect. They're not going to have everything done, but they'll be on their way and moving forward towards goals that they have.
So if you're looking for EDIC to be a resource partner, is this something to the other members of EDIC that we should vote on? Or is there something more that we should know before we go forward with that? Because I assume that if we're a resource partner, you're going to want to officially put us on that list that you showed us. I guess I would make a motion to become a resource partner.
Well, I'm just wondering, what is it that we would provide?
Yeah, I guess that was kind of my question, Mo. I don't know, Chris, if these businesses were to come to EDIC, I guess we could be a referral.
That's what I was thinking, that we would just be another sounding board to point people, almost like the round table, because I think that EDIC by nature, the members know generally where to go, and planning is here, generally speaking.
Yeah, anybody that ever
that's
asked
something
me,
that we could discuss further in our February meeting and be clearer about that and offer that back to Casey at that time.
Good idea.
Makes sense.
And and planning is already in there, and so is the chamber. Just to give you that information.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, because anytime anyone asks me any kind of question, I just say call Jeff. So.
I think that's the general good answer.
No, and
Sorry, Jeff.
As the title of this board, it seems like it's right in our wheelhouse as far as trying to be some part of the solution to entrepreneur growth, economic development. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, and just anecdotally, real quick, the other thing that's valuable about getting this update and seeing Blueprint Easthampton start to lift off is just simply all the people around this call who know other people, and any interaction that you have, and pointing people to this resource. I think that's where we can really get some more value. I get stuck on the permitting because that's what I do, but there's that whole stage, I think what Tom was saying about formulating a business plan and just interacting with people and helping them get their ideas together and their ducks in a row. Like that's all stuff that just there's no capacity in the planning department to do that. So that's like a huge gap at the beginning. And so just being, if nothing else, just being mindful of be like, yes, you're coming to Easthampton, like check out Blueprint Easthampton, and just kind of get people to be aware of it. So like the general knowledge is also helpful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to wrap up this portion of our meeting. We have 14 minutes left. So Casey Corsello, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
I'm so
Casey.
glad you were here.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
all the
Casey.
time. You gave me a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no, that wasn't targeted at you. And we will be in touch.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thanks.
Happy
Have a
New Year,
lovely
everyone.
afternoon.
Bye.
Take care.
Jeff Bagg, do you have things to share with us as updates for the planning department?
Sure. I just wanted to share 3 quick things. So the housing production plan is our affordable housing planning document. The key date that we have now established is February 17th. And that's the date that our consultant is going to present the final plan to City Council and the Planning Board. The City Council and Planning Board are the 2 bodies that have to vote to adopt it. So if people wanted to pencil in their calendar for February 17th at 6:15, it could be very useful to have EDIC have a presence there. And I think it falls before the next meeting. So maybe having a quick discussion about having someone from EDIC say something positive about the plan. And we all know like the production plan is part 1 of 3. And we're hoping really, I'm trying to push that the next couple steps occur quicker than the first one. But we have accessory dwelling units. And then kind of this idea of a generalized master plan out. It's not a whole master plan chapter, but it's like an outline of our housing needs in general. And those were all things that, this committee was really instrumental in pushing and formulating. We got the grant. So having someone from EDIC say something briefly at city council would be pretty meaningful. So that's item number 1.
That is a revision to our very tentative, it might be January 20th. It is
That's
February
right.
17th. Do not hold me to January 20th.
Yeah, sorry, everything got shuffled around.
That's okay. Just wanted to remind people in case people put that in their calendars, which I would love to know, but
I rescheduled the Parks Commission meeting for this.
Hey, Jeff, you said you were going to present it on the 17th, present it to the city planning board and who else?
City council.
City council. Okay, thank you.
And do we have access to the documentation that they produced?
Yeah, I've been following a little bit behind in some things. So what I probably owe this committee is a transmittal, an email saying here's the plan. It's been out for like a week, and I had to kind of prioritize getting it to planning board and city council. But I would owe you guys a email where you can find the draft plan. It's a lot of data, and some of the group attended that first meeting with the consultant. And then there's a series of kind of findings, and then there's action items. Just so you don't get too taken back by 100 pages, because there's a lot of data if you like data, and then there's the end is kind of action plans, and then there is a bonus, which is the consultant did 4 site assessments. So they looked at a couple properties in Easthampton and drew pictures of what housing development could look like, just to get people sort of aware of what some of this might look like. It's nothing set in stone with those drawings, but they're there to help illustrate.
Jeff, just as an aside real quick, if I read it correctly, I saw where Northampton is considering multifamily development by right. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, duplexes. Yeah, that came up. That has come up. I think I attended a city council property subcommittee meeting, and it came up. And I think it's important. I think Northampton is always kind of good at kind of being on the leading edge. I think our a little bit smaller goal would be to do accessory dwelling units by right, kind of as our first as a first bite at that apple. I did anecdotally state to people that I think Northampton's probably 3 or 4 years into their housing work, and are kind of that's their product that they have coming out right now. Okay. But I think it is something to look at. It's in our list of to do things. So it's a pretty common action item.
And your second issue,
Yeah, sorry, my computer is going really slow, so I keep freezing. The second item is I wanted to make sure that EDIC knew that we did apply for some funding, which would bring us a consultant to create a COVID action plan. And it's really oriented around business support. It's called the Local Rapid Recovery. And I can't recall if the whole committee got the awareness of this, but Gwen wrote a letter of support on behalf of EDIC for this. And it's a partnership with Mo and the chamber. And the idea is that we can get access. We applied, and we hope to hear that we can get access to a consultant who's going to help us kind of assess the situation right now in Easthampton, and then formulate kind of a 3-step action plan to help recover businesses after COVID. And so Mo was really helpful in formulating kind of our action items. Mo, I don't know if you want to say something real quick about it.
No, you've wrapped it up pretty well. I'm just wondering when we might hear back about that.
Yeah, if I recall, it was going to be in February. And again, it's not a money grant. We're not getting money, but we're going to get someone, presumably with expertise to convene business stakeholders together. And what we found anecdotally is that, like, the owners of the mills did something to help their tenants, and some other businesses did this, and some businesses got PPEs, and we want to kind of understand what people did and what they need and help position them. One of the asks was more technical assistance for businesses to navigate the loans that are out there. We talked about wayfinding, because we have a wayfinding project underway, and anything we can do to implement, to help people get to Easthampton and know where they're going. And there were a few other action items. One did mention Blueprint Easthampton, which is to continue to get businesses aware of that resource. And I think as more businesses access that, the more we'll be able to build it up. So I think, Gwen, that's item number 2 that I'll send out to this committee. Is just a copy of what we submitted.
Great, and shout out to Cassie for helping with that letter.
Yes, thank you, Cassie, for helping with that letter. Woohoo! All right, and then the last one is just, I do believe we brought this one to the committee last time, which is that there was funding from Mass DOT for shared streets and spaces. And I worked closely with Pascalina and ECA, and we submitted a grant that would allow us to continue to do those outdoor concerts at 50 Payson. And so the idea is that if we get funded, it was about $20,000. We would host 5 events in April and May, and they would be outside at that parking lot. And then the beauty of it is that they are funding capital improvements. So the request was for a portable stage, a PA system, and a couple other things that would make some tables and chairs, some tables and some tents to help transform 50 Payson into like a little event space. And then ECA would be able to keep that infrastructure moving forward. And so, Pascalina has been envisioning holding more events in the fall using that equipment. And then the last thing is that the ECA coordinating committee voted to allocate their last round of grant. They're doing an artist grant funding program now, and they're going to devote the last round of that funding to artists who could occupy the space at 50 Payson for those 5 events. So it's kind of this program where we'll get funding to make stuff happen, and then ECA will fund and will ask artists to contribute stuff and musicians to play at those 5 events. So that we should hear about that also in early February.
Great. So we have lots of good news to look forward to on February 16th.
Yeah, I think we should know probably about both of those by the 16th. Is that the next meeting? Is the 16th?
Sure is.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So great. Thank you very much, Jeff. I want to share with everyone that Paul alerted me to the fact that the Telecommunications Advisory Committee's report is nearly finalized. It's in its draft form, its penultimate draft form. It's not quite yet beautifully formatted. Is that correct, Paul?
That's right. All the text is done. We're just doing the formatting. It's going to look really pretty.
Okay. So,
I'm really excited to share with you guys.
Yeah, I understand that he would like us to have a gander at it when that is available to us. So feel free to send it in whatever format pleases you most for us to see the beauty or for us to see the content. I don't care. So we have 4 minutes. We could talk about some of the things we'd like to achieve this year in 4 minutes. Korchik came up with one already, which is subject to checking what is actually happening in the city's meetings with department heads, et cetera. Are there any other things that really are standing out to you as things that you would like to be able to look back on a year from now and go, oh man, we were really good at that?
If I may, we might want to take a time and look at what we said a year ago, what we wanted to accomplish and how we did on that.
Good idea.
Yep, can do.
I remember last year we talked about doing a brochure about Easthampton. I don't know if people see a need for it anymore or.
I mean, let's revisit it. We've
Okay.
got, I think there's going to be plenty to discuss in February, and we can add that to the list of things, and I'll dredge up last year's minutes, and we can share those back, and people can reprioritize their thinking about it.
I think one of the things that we talked about too is having our head on a swivel for zoning and zoning changes. And I know that was something that came up with the cannabis group in the Tasty Top. And just as an example of you know, an entrepreneur looking to do something and zoning needed to change, or they needed to look at it, just to be a little bit more aware and able to help, or you know, see you know what direction we need to go. You know, something that to say downtown business that was established 5 years ago may not fit the same criteria of the current time, and how we could potentially be a little bit more helpful or attuned to making things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Casey, too, referring to that one specifically, I think if we as a group, you know, maybe going forward, we can try to do a better job of showing up at those meetings. You know, maybe it was zoning, but remember the issue before the city council was to change the zoning, which it failed, but it failed by a very close vote. And the problem, and I know Jeff deals with this day in and day out, is anytime any of these things come up, the only folks showing up are the ones speaking against it. And no disrespect to them, but they might have had good reasons, but that tends to sway some votes on any board when you have a room full of people who are negative about what you're going to approve. And if we had been there, or other people had been there looking at it from a business development standpoint, a tax generation standpoint, other benefits to the city, we might have swayed a vote or two.
I think that's a great idea. The more activist side of EDIC at those meetings, the visibility of us. Yes, Casey.
Where do we stand with the Dunkin' Donuts at the NV Street?
How much time do we have? Just kidding. But one quick
0
question.
minutes.
Just on this, the topic before Duncan is, we are trying to provide at least the chair of the EDIC with a copy of all new applications when they come in. So we're required to get an application and transmit it to department heads. And then over time, some boards and committees have been added. And I think EDIC should be on the list to start to get these new applications. And so just for looking ahead, we want to make sure that there's a process for the chair to get that and then maybe forward them out. So, because they usually occur about 20 to 30 days before there's a hearing, but that can vary. And so I think we can talk about that level of communication. So at least EDIC is able to see what's coming, because I think that's going to be really helpful. And then there may be certain projects that maybe the EDIC, if you want to take a stance, like as EDIC, I think you need to convene and just make sure that you're all on the same page and make a letter from EDIC. But we can work on that, and it should be a little bit in motion now to build that process. So the Dunkin' on East Street, it's the applicant requested a 3-month continuation to March, which is kind of unprecedented. And what they're going to look at is they're going to explore privately funding a change to the East Street and Route 5 intersection. It would be a traffic light. And if they think that they can pay for it and that Mass DOT will approve it, it might be a while, but that was the last hurdle with the planning board, is that the traffic was an actual real problem at that intersection created by that proposal. And so if that's a solution, they were willing to consider privately funding the light and going through the permitting process with Mass DOT. If those two things fall apart, then I'm not sure that the project would continue to move forward.
What traffic at the intersection? There's
Oh.
no traffic at that intersection.
Well, there is if you're trying to get to work on time in the morning and if it's non-COVID times.
They were forced to do a study, and it showed that it's 2 minutes, expands to 5 minutes, expands to 13 minutes, in the next 5 and 10 years. So it's not just today; it's 5 years. You know what I mean? We let this business come in, add to the traffic, and then wow, now it's our responsibility. So there's been a study at it. The study looked good.
Okay, fair enough.
It's mostly the morning.
Gobsmacked by the idea that they might privately fund the traffic light. That blows my mind.
Yeah. It was a surprise. I mean, if they can make it work, it would be impressive, and I think it would allow that project to move forward. But it was a little bit unprecedented. So we obviously gave them the benefit of time to explore that and see.
That's a lot of coffee and donuts to pay for that traffic light.
That's a state
Their
road,
business
isn't it?
plan must look pretty good.
Yeah, it's a state road, someone said, yeah.
I have one thing that I'd like to explore this year. In the before times, Cassie had done a lot of research on vacant buildings, and I'd like to pick that back up and try to codify something.
I asked to lease or rent or buy the property next door to me. That's a start.
Nice.
He was surprised, but didn't give me an answer.
I'm on the edge of my seat about that, Casey.
So, Casey, you
we
said
would
that-
like some BCC'd emails when you know an answer to that, please.
So he knows it's got to get moved along eventually.
That is a tear down, correct, Casey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, and just for me, the threat of Easthampton Savings building out the building next to me, I lose the drive-through, I lose the parking. So it's I have to be proactive, and it's explaining the shared parking and all that kind of situation that was clearly marked as a potential shared parking streetscape scenario.
I've always thought, and Jeff might know this if this is still an issue, but I was always under the impression that his inability to sell that piece was because it provided parking for the apartments across the street.
Correct.
But does a buyer have an opportunity to continue that arrangement for those apartments that,
Or do we need to look at parking and say that overnight parking is allowed on that street? Because then that alleviates that issue. Still have the 2-hour parking limit. But that's just the issue is that, come 9 o'clock, I used to get parking tickets every once in a while because I would decide to walk home from the cellar bar because it was the right thing to do. And I would get a ticket because I was parked in front of my business. So it's like if the city can give up the parking spaces up front with a 2-hour limit, then he doesn't have to worry about it. So, there's conversations to be had.
I think the issue might be snowstorms.
True.
If I can mention the thing that we might want to look at this year, I'm not sure how much impact we can have, but we did kind of talk about it earlier with the difficulties in the permitting process for new businesses and new properties, and not necessarily even knowing what permits do you need. Oh, I'm sorry, you need a special permit for this. Oh, it has to go to this process. And, it seems like we have all these obstacles set up, and some of them I'm sure are for good reasons, but if we can identify kind of unnecessary bureaucracies that maybe have manifested over time and find ways to improve that, it would really could open, some opportunities for businesses and for developments. And it kind of fits what we do.
Yeah, I think Jeff, I'm going to repeat what Jeff said earlier, Paul, but I think Jeff has been very good. I know I've called him a couple of times. He's been very good about saying, hey, don't forget you're going to need this or you're going to need that. So I think not that it's Jeff's job to necessarily do that, but I think Jeff's been doing a pretty good job of trying to wrap his arms around exactly, if you're going to open a liquor store, you're going to open a cannabis place or whatever. He's been pretty good about giving them a checklist of everything they need to get from A to Z. And Jeff, I don't even know if that's really your job. That almost sounds like this economic development position.
Well, in Amherst, it took time, but ultimately the town of Amherst created a permit administrator, and it was that one place where everyone went, and then that person helped do all the legwork around and brought everyone together. I think we're a little ways away from that. I think our economic development vision is it has to be like pretty diverse. But to Paul's point, I could put a little bit sharper point on something to think about, and I think it could be sooner rather than later, which is I think we're seeing signs of success with changing the zoning downtown. So you might recall in the downtown, you can now go into a vacant building. If you're not really changing anything, you can go in and skip the planning board or zoning board. And that's, there's a couple new businesses that popped up on Cottage Street. And we're continuing to see people who are kind of like testing the waters about just forming a business. And that streamlining, I think, has really helped, and it helped downtown. So I think the next step would be especially in the highway business district, thinking about it can't be carte blanche. So there has to be something where there's a new property that I'm just watching with curiosity, which is the former Carpet, the flooring place on Northampton Street has signed for sale or for lease. If someone could occupy that building and not have to change the site, then that could be the next level of a change, kind of going out of the downtown business and into the highway business, and for the kind of allowing new tenants to come when they don't need to make a significant change. I think we're never going to get away with permitting. We're never going to get rid of permitting for like a brand new structure that has a lot of parking and that kind of always will have to be, but like the re-tenants of buildings, I think that's something that that could take shape in a couple months, and I think it'll continue to show our trying to be responsive to COVID. As more of these buildings become empty, getting them reoccupied, it's a really high priority. And Paul, I think that kind of fits within that. That's one thing that's like really tangible that could be something that gets worked on in the next couple months.
Jeff, would that have worked where Nick Dupree put the gym in the old auto body place? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
An example of how that might have worked?
Yeah. And if you take that building that I just mentioned, I think, that could be just one example. I haven't heard from anyone on that, but it's going to be kind of painful for me to have the conversation with someone who comes in and says, I want to do a gym. Not that we need a gym, but I want to do a gym here, and I don't need to change anything. And I'd have to send them to the planning board. And that's what we all hear is that could take 3 months. So that would be really important.
One other thing real quick, Gwen, I promise. A thing we didn't do last year, and this COVID thing, summer's coming eventually, we think. Outdoor dining, remember the St. Pierre plan about downtown and all of that? Maybe we should be taking a crack at that with whoever needs to take a crack at it, because as soon as we get to April and May, these restaurants are all going to be looking to push outdoors again. And I don't know what we can do to help them.
So that'll be, and I think that's something that we could generate some of our ideas now with benefit of hindsight with where we're currently at, and be able to share should we get the grant for a COVID-related consultant, because that's going to be something really useful to our thinking, I think.
Yep. Good.
Yeah, and maybe would it be okay to put that on the agenda for next time as a specific item? Because
of course.
I think Tom's right, and I think Paul was right. I think now is the time to start thinking about that. And just real quick, I think what we missed, what missed my awareness was if there are specific businesses on Union Street or Cottage Street that want to get outside. If we know who they are, then that's really helpful. I think that was something that wasn't clear to me, that we knew who they were. And then we made something work for the Silver Spoon, because they just directly said we got to do this, and we hadn't really heard that from anyone else. So I think in the February meeting, it could be good to brainstorm. If anyone's aware of businesses that want to consider trying to access the parking spaces, we could talk in February and be thinking about April. I mean, I think that's kind of like that would be realistic.
And Jeff, along those lines, is this the year the Union Street starts to get blown up?
No, I think we go all the way through 2021, and we have to get into the spring of 22 before that construction starts.
Okay, good.
I think that's my rough understanding of it.
I hate to add one more thing, but the future building use, should that be part of our dialogue?
Yeah, it could be. So we got, I was happy to attend the school building committee last week, which helped us understand whether there might be a change to the timeline to when the future use committee sort of can form, because there will be a selling off of buildings, et cetera, that sort of thing. So yeah, that can be something that's on our radar. So here's what I propose. In anticipation of the February meeting, I will, along with our agenda, I will just send out the list that we've created today and invite you to send back to me before that meeting other thoughts you've had since then, so that I can make them available to you in a list that day. Not saying that that's the only set of things you can think of. We can add more in our conversation, but I think it'll be good to do some thinking outside of the meeting so that we're not doing brainstorming while we're together. And we will, what else are we doing? We're going to discuss potentially what EDIC's role might be were we to be listed as a Blueprint Easthampton resource. I think that's it. And we'll look forward to reading Paul's Telecommunications Advisory Committee report when that is available. And that's what I think is the facts. Any other thoughts?
Just one follow-up, Gwen, to you mentioned the school building committee. So there was no change. We voted to not accelerate the project, and therefore it's going to be its original schedule. So those buildings will be available, I believe, in the fall of 22.
So we've got time to continue immersing ourselves in the wash of information we got from that exceptional consultancy that helped people think through what the options were and what our dreams looked like, and do some of our own thinking. What do you think?
Yeah, and just so we don't, I wasn't going to really talk about it, but I'm going to say it just so everyone knows that there's also optimism here, which is that we landed a state grant a while back to help get direct help with we need to form a committee. Then we have a consultant who's going to walk us through taking the downtown plan and translating it into an actual RFP. Yep. And so, I'm putting some final touches on how that will work and the schedule for that. But that's positivity that we need help. We need someone to guide us through that process, because it's going to be long and kind of in depth. But we have that. We have the funding now. And so I was chatting with Tom, and I was kind of waiting to see if the speed of the new school changed, and it didn't. So we're right on course to bring someone on probably like early summer. So think June or July, bring them on board, and they're going to run through next winter and work with the committee to come up with an RFP. So we do have a plan of approach for that, which we could probably talk more about in February. I think I'll have more details for that.
That RFP, Jeff, is specific to the schools?
Right. Yep. And yep. So it sounds like the suggestion has been that we think about 3 RFPs, one for each school, which gives us the maximum flexibility to kind of pick and choose a little bit. So I'll have more information in February, and then definitely by March, things will become clear that we have a path forward. But I did want to just say that, because it's definitely I'm optimistic.
Great.
Okay. Great. All right, friends. Anybody care to move that we adjourn this joint?
Move, we adjourn this joint.
Second.
Outstanding. All in favor? Holler aye.
Aye.
Yay. Any abstentions? Any nays? No? Okay. This has been a great meeting. I love seeing you. I'll see you in February.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.